Gold D Roger and Gold Lion Shiki. Everybody knows One Piece Chapter 0 is one of the most controversial canon chapters in the story because there's a little mixture of movie element to it. But let me explain. Yes, Oda only drew this chapter because of the Strong World film, but Shiki has always been an important character. Oda actually said he wanted to mention him during Shanks and Whitebeard's meeting, but chose to leave him out instead of Roger, Garp, and Sengoku. Now you also have to remember this, guys. He's an original founding member of the Rocks crew with, of course, Whitebeard and Rocks, and you have to understand that he also is a legend after the God Valley incident. Oda showcased that it was Roger, Whitebeard, Big Mom, Kaido, Shiki, and Ochoku. These 6 were legends after the God Valley incident. So today, we do an analyzation of Chapter 0. You guys really enjoyed Chapter 1 and how it connects to the current story in Elbaf and beyond. Make sure you guys like the video and subscribe to the channel. Now, Chapter 0 takes place 3 years before the Great Pirate Era. And if to be more specific, it's actually 11 years after the God Valley incident. We all know that Shiki became a legend after God Valley, so this is definitely important details that need to be discussed. Garp also said that he was waiting on Roger and Shiki to finally make contact in their epic war, historic war. And we know the history between these pirates. We know that Roger and Garp were rivals, and we know that Garp and Shiki had it going after this incident, of course. So there is a little interesting history there between Garp, Roger, and Shiki. We also see that Kong is very pissed off, and we see Garp leaving his office. Now we know that Kong and Garp were going at it even before the God Valley incident, and we know that Garp has always rejected an admiral position. But I think Kong didn't ask him to be an admiral. I think the fact that Kong was angry, I think Kong asked him to be the actual fleet admiral. After the God Valley incident, Garp was the greatest marine of all time, surpassing the likes of Kong. And I think he declined it. And I think this leads into Sengoku eventually becoming the fleet admiral. There's always a fleet admiral discussion, how to say his politics when it comes to the Gorosei and who the Marines want. You know that Akainu and Aokiji had their own run-in, so I feel like this is definitely very good plot points that Chapter 0 does highlight. And I do want to say this. Garp wants to stay free from the Gorosei and the Celestial Dragons and Immu. He knows about Immu. Remember, Roger invited him to his crew after the God Valley incident, the Rocks battle, so this is definitely a detail that can't be forgotten. And I know we see Aokiji glazing Garp. It's crazy because Aokiji is the one who actually defeated Garp with the help of the Blackbeard pirates. We see Suru saying that she doesn't want her ship to be destroyed when Garp says he wants to hitch a ride. And we all know that Suru and Garp were from the Rocks era. I also love how Garp is keeping that rivalry going even after God Valley. I know God Valley, they saw a lot of crazy things, and you would think, man, are they still gonna be rivals after that incident? But yes, Garp still wants to take down Roger, as we see Akainu not even acknowledging Garp's existence. We do know they had a little beef during Marineford when Akainu killed Ace, and I wonder if Akainu and Garp have a little bit of tension. We know that Sengoku and Akainu have tension, but it's more like banter. I think Garp and Akainu might be a little more different. They're kind of polar opposites when it comes to their intentions. We know Akainu is like, yo, get the job done, I don't care about emotions. And Garp is like, get the job done, but emotional intelligence as well. So there's a little bit of contrast between my justice and absolute justice. We also see Sengoku mad at Garp trying to take Shiki from him, but Garp says you can take the credit, which Sengoku just gets pissed off because Sengoku's a pretty powerful character with an insane mythical zone Devil Fruit. And we know that he has his beef with Whitebeard and Shiki. I think Sengoku was the one who beefed everybody else except Roger. I feel like Roger was for Garp. But I do think Sengoku and Roger did have the run-ins because we know that when Roger during the Oden flashback said to the Marines, only bring Garp or Sengoku. So Roger has a respect for Sengoku. Sengoku, I feel like he was beefing most of the other guys when it comes to even including Big Mom as well. Now we do know that Yamakaji and Momonga, these 2 vice admirals in this flashback, say they know the true reason why pretty much Garp wants to smoke is just for Roger. And of course, we all know that the God Valley incident and their beef there, and they had their era with the Rocks. Definitely, Garp and Roger's story is a little more developed now that we see him happen in the Elbaf flashback with Chapter 0 combined to it. Now, of course, Buggy is telling Roger, listen to Shiki, yo, he's too powerful. But I'm thinking, Buggy, you don't know. Shiki looks at Roger like a monster. Buggy, you don't know that Shiki knows about the insane sanity of God Valley with Roger, and before that even. So I think Buggy definitely is too young to be telling Roger what to do and who to listen to. And I know Roger laughed because he's thinking, I beefed this guy's captain, Rocks, on God Valley, amped up with Immu's power, Dami Reversi. Now, I do want to say Shanks says pretty much that you're good because you have a Devil Fruit. And Buggy's like, yo, common sense, like, no, there's other weaknesses I have. Of course, we've seen East Blue, Luffy whipped his ass. And And of course, Haki has definitely been a power that's been developed post time skip. So chapter 0, I think, is a better chapter after we get to the end of One Piece. I feel like as we get along the story, it gets better and better. Because this chapter 0 was done pre-time skip for the Strong World film. Strong World's a pre-time skip film. And of course, we all know that post-time skip has changed the landscape of One Piece forever. I also love how Crocus says that Roger's in peak condition and he's ready to fight. You know, Crocus is a character during Reverse Mountain in the beginning of the Grand Line that had a run of the Straw Hat Pirates, and he even said, yo, Roger, these guys were waiting for. People like to forget that Crocus is a legitimate Roger pirate. I know he only joined, of course, to find out the truth when it comes to Laboon, but he still is a legit Roger pirate who went to Laugh Tale, guys. I know he wasn't there during the God Valley incident, but if there's any, he joined after the God Valley incident. It's kind of like these other characters that we know, like Jinbei, Brook, Frankie. Like, you have so many characters that weren't there in the beginning arcs of One Piece with these Straw Hat Pirates, but every time they join, they still feels like they were there from day one. Sometimes I get a little confused, like during the beginning of Elbaf, where we saw that the Straw Hat Pirates, like Robin, Frankie, Brook, Jinbei, didn't know what the X mark on Gear 5 Luffy what it meant. Everyone knows that's Vivi, and a reference to Vivi. Scarpa then tells Buggy to give it up. We know how Roger has been for years, and of course, this is highlighted in Elbaf when it showed the beef that Gabon and Roger had back in the days. Gabon always telling Roger to stop and Roger never stopping. But of course, we know Gabon is the Mountain Eater, got his nickname from protecting Roger when he got sick. Now, of course, Rayleigh says trust in Tom's ship, which is a reference to the Aurora Jackson. And of course, Tom, and we do see Tom in this flashback chapter 0. And also Rayleigh says Roger hasn't much time left. So pretty much let Roger have his fun. Let him enjoy this battle. We know Roger's had some insane battles prior, but I feel like Rayleigh's saying, yo, let Roger go at it with Shiki. And you understand, they face guys like Rocks, Garp, much stronger guys than Shiki in the past. I also love how Shiki tells Roger to forget about the past and for them to combine, of course, Roger knowing about the world-destroying weapon, the ancient weapon, and his fleet, insane armada of a fleet. And of course, tells Roger he's been planning something crazy and pretty much tells Roger to become his right-hand man. And I'm just thinking, folks, Shiki is a comedian because obviously the past that he's talking about is speaking about the Rocks era. You know, Shiki was a founding member of the Rocks crew, so he knows the beef that Roger Pirates and Rocks Pirates had back in the days. And Roger says he doesn't care about ruling because Shiki's talking about ruling. And says, what's the point of becoming a pirate if you can't do what you want? I think Roger has Joy Boy's attitude, whereas Shiki, Rocks, they have a kind of like a Davy Jones attitude of conquering the world. And I feel like I like the contrast that we see here. I think Shiki actually developed this attitude from, of course, Rocks D. Zebek, or Davy D. Zebek, whatever you want to call him. Wow, seeing all the ships surrounding Roger and Roger still telling Shiki no is why he's the Pirate King. It's mind over matter for Roger. And Shiki says, so you want me to kill you, right? And Roger says, I will crush all you guys. This is Shiki, who knows how strong Roger is and is pretty much trying to use a numbers game, which is not a bad idea against Roger. Like, using the numbers game is not a bad idea because we know one-on-one, who else can go up against Roger one-on-one? Maybe Whitebeard and Garp. But still, let's be honest here, guys. I think that Roger really showed to me during the God Valley incident. He gets stronger after this. That Roger is incredibly powerful when it comes to Haki. And that's why Kaido said Haki transcends all. I think Roger's Haki is stronger than Whitebeard's Haki. I think Whitebeard's Delphi definitely makes him in contention with Roger. And I think Garp has insane Haki as well on Roger's level. But the thing is, Garp, you have to understand, guys, his ambition isn't as strong as Roger. Roger is going through the Grand Line multiple times and whatnot. Garp's just trying to capture Roger. But Roger's trying to do the unthinkable, get to the last island. I think that purpose, that willpower, definitely makes him next level. But I do think they're relative. I do think that Garp and Whitebeard are around the same level as Roger, but Pirate King level. But Roger is just a monster. This battle will be later known as the Edward Battle, and Roger's ship in a dire situation was saved by a sudden blast of foul weather. I think it might have been Dragon, guys. I think maybe Dragon, maybe the man marked by flames. You know, he's recently mentioned by Oda in a message. Now, the fact that half of Shiki's fleet was destroyed and he got an accident as the battle ends in a draw, not bad for Shiki. Yeah, you get a life permanent accident to your head with that wheel, and of course you lose half your fleet, but you live fighting the Pirate King. And we know Roger is strong in a 1v1 battle. It's a Pirate King level character versus a Yonko level character. I think Shiki, Big Mom, Kaido, even Ochoku only reached Yonko level. I think Ochoku going down is the reason why Blackbeard was actually recognized as being Yonko level, not just taking down Mark of the Phoenix, but Ochoku as well with Pirate Island. We all know Shiki got a wheel stuck in his head, and Dr. Indigo said you can't just kill the man, pretty much saying that Shiki has incredible durability. And Shiki replies, why do you think they call me the lion? And it reminds me of the kid path. I think Shiki definitely went down the kid path. I think Shiki tried to fight Rocks before the Rocks crew was formed. I think Shiki lost to Rocks. I think Shiki's went at it with Whitebeard. I think Shiki's went at it with Garp, Roger, Sengoku. I think he's just how he became a Yonko. We know that, of course, Kid lost his arm, of course, and fighting Yonkos in the entire New World, and lost his entire crew and almost his life to Shanks. But he's always getting back up, and Elbaf's gonna be the arc for Kid to get back up. And I think that Shiki is the parallel to Eustace Kid. And 2 years later, we learn that Roger becomes Pirate King after getting Odin, and Roger disappears after 1 year later and will shock the world when he gets arrested. Of course, he learned of Joy Boy's story and decides to turn himself in. I think he learned of Imu as well. It's kind of vague with Scopper, Gabon, and Rayleigh. They kind of seem kind of vague, but Vegapunk kind of confirms that they know the true story. I think they just don't know how it connects to the current story. Shiki couldn't believe that Roger was arrested, telling his crew they know what that man is capable of. You have to understand, Shiki knows that Roger was rivaling Rocks and Garp during that era. And of course, God Valley incident, how incredible hockey that he unleashed there, even clashing with Whitebeard, and clashing with Whitebeard later, but right before he became Pirate King as well, stealing Big Mom's Royal Poneglyph, the Ed War with Shiki. Yeah, Roger is a monster, so I don't blame Shiki for shooting his own crew member and crashing out to Marineford. Yes, he went all the way to Marineford, just like Luffy did. Luffy escaped Impel Down. There's some parallels with Shiki and Luffy, not like personality parallels, more so path parallels, how they crashed out. They had that crashed out there. I'm not saying Shiki's Pirate King level because Luffy's going to become Pirate King. I just think that's pretty cool, the similarities I noticed in the story. And Shiki killed so many Marines. You see him standing atop all these bodies and all the blood and the swords, his swords there. Really gruesome. I love when One Piece goes dark. And he says they could never capture Roger, as he said, what if he was the king of pirates? Like, pretty much saying we could have conquered the world. It's like Shiki inherited Rox's dream. Remember, guys, Shiki's an OG founding member of the Rox Pirates. Shiki also said they didn't team up but lived through the same era. So pretty much saying to bring him out, he'll be the one to kill him. You have to understand the era he speaks on is the Rocks, Whitebeard, Shiki, Big Mom, Choku, Roger, Rayleigh, Gabon, Garp, Sengoku, Brogard, Silver Axe, Captain John, Gangri, an array of characters, Shaki. There's a lot of monsters from this era, guys. It's a pretty insane era if I'm being completely transparent. I love how Sengoku lets Shiki know that Roger beat him and is now quitting while he's ahead. And Garp says Roger's death is going to break the spirits of pirates everywhere. Well, it actually started the Great Pirate Era. That's pretty funny. Like, pretty much went against what Garp wanted. And Shiki is irate that Roger's going to die in the weakest sea, saying it's an insult to that scumbag. So he still has resentment towards Roger, but he still knows you can't insult the Pirate King. And then Garp says the East Blue is a symbol of peace. You have to understand, Garp's from the East Blue, Luffy's from the East Blue. There's a lot of characters from the East Blue. And Garp was way closer to Roger than Shiki, which makes it funnier. Like, we're seeing Shiki crash out for Roger, but the guy who's actually closer is the one who's stopping him. It just shows you how much impact Roger had, which I said a controversial thing in my chapter 1 analyzation, guys. I think Roger's more impactful than any pirate in the One Piece world. I think Luffy's only going to be the only one to surpass his impact once One Piece ends. It was a pretty interesting battle. It destroyed half Marineford. It was a 2v1, so you got to take it with a grain of salt. We've seen a lot of 2v1s in the One Piece story. Eustace Kid and Law versus Big Mom. And how do I say this? We've seen Roger and Roger and Garp versus Rocks. But this 2v1 is a little bit different because they don't show it. So it's kind of like Oda trying to say, yeah, they kind of did overpower Sengoku. Sengoku and Garp didn't overpower Shiki. But you can't really blame Shiki. Sengoku's a Yonko level character. Shiki's a Yonko level character. You could say Sengoku is maybe Pirate King level character because he did reach Fleet Admiral status. But I think he's Yonko level. I think Shiki's Yonko level. They both have insanely OP Delve Fruits that cause destruction. The Mythical Zone on Sengoku's side. The Flying Delve Fruit on Shiki's side. And then you have the man with the strongest haki after Roger, maybe on the same level as Roger and Garp. Yeah, of course, it's going to cause crazy destructive capability. I'm not surprised at the outcome. I think Shiki had no chance. I do think it does make Shiki look better. Oda makes Shiki look better by not showing the fight. So I'm going to defend Shiki there. People saying Shiki is so strong, he fought Garp and Sengoku on the 1v2. No, because Garp, we've seen Garp in God Valley flashback how strong he is. He's relative to Roger, and Roger's stronger than Shiki. So yeah, but just that Shiki's not a weakling. People have to forget just because he wasn't that 6-man combo attack against Imbu in God Valley, people think he's guy's weak. No, you saw what he did to Ganjui. You guys seen him in that 4 insane battle. I believe when Shiki, Kaido, Big Mom, and Whitebeard attacked the pirates on God Valley. Like, they are significant characters. He's an OG member, unlike Big Mom and Kaido, the Rocks crew. I think the fact that he beefs with Rocks and Garp, Garp, Whitebeard, is he shows strong leadership. He shows he's a monster, and he's always been said to be a monster since the beginning of One Piece, guys. Now, 1 week later, the start of the Great Pirate Era, it was a pretty cool era. We have Doflamingo. We know Doflamingo's right now in Impel Down. Is probably going to escape like Shiki. We have Buggy. Buggy became a Yonko level character, just like Shiki was kind of like a Yonko back in the days. We have Mihawk. Mihawk is a swordsman like Shiki. We have Crocodile. We know Crocodile and Mihawk were both, Crocodile and Shiki were both trying to get ancient weapons. We have Moria. Moria is a little more interesting to tie into Shiki, but I do know that Moria fought Kaido, and probably maybe Shiki fought Kaido. Who knows in that connection there? I'm not too sure where I can go with that. And maybe there's a connection, I'm not too sure. And then there's Shanks and Dragon. Shanks, of course, Roger. Dragon, of course, Garp. And Shiki's connections there. So, yeah, we do have some connections to the guys staring at Roger's execution. But I think the bigger thing is these guys are kind of like the beginning of the Great Pirate Era. And then the worst generation are kind of like adding on to that Great Pirate Era, in my opinion. I also love how we get reactions across the world to Roger's execution. We get, of course, Cobra's reaction. We know Cobra is a pretty pivotal character in Egghead Island. We got Omi Kashi, who definitely is a pivotal character in Egghead Island and Elbaf. We get Dorian Broggy, like I said, Egghead Island and Elbaf. And, of course, they are continuing fighting in their battle in the past. Tonjit and Cricket, that's pretty interesting too as well. You know, Tonjit, he was a part of the Davy back like incident area, Long Island. Mont Blanc Cricket is Nolan, Nika, and whatnot. Lucci, Bluno, and Jabra, CP0, Egghead Island showcased them. Baby Duval, it talks about a curse, kind of reminds you of Loki. And of course, Boa saying we need to get stronger to join the crew, and Luffy's mother theory of her being Toritoma or Toritoma, whatever her name is. So yeah, there's a lot of interesting things in Chapter 0 that can connect to the story right now. Shiki then talks about Roger dying and starting a new era. And he pretty much said it was this Great Pirate Era is a waste. Like, why did you have to die, Roger? And seeing Wano, I think Shiki would change his mind because Big Mom and Kaido pretty much fell to the new era, guys. And Big Mom and Kaido are, after the God Valley incident, they shaped their own era. This is part of Roger's era. Roger's era is Whitebeard, Big Mom, Kaido, Shiki, and Ochoku. Those 6 characters are of course, Roger's era. Before that, before the God Valley incident, it was Rox's era with Garp and Roger center, highlighting that alongside Rox Beck. I also love how we see Shiki cutting his own feet to escape and pull down. Kind of remind me of Zoro and Little Garden vibes, how he almost did that. And of course, Shiki asked if pretty much the vice warden, which of today, Hannibal, if he's seen his Oto and Kogorashi sword. The fact that he has named sword, Shiki's swordsmanship is underrated, but he's a part of an era of Roger and Rox and just some of the most strongest swordsmen in them. So definitely I get why it doesn't get talked about a lot. Even Rayleigh is a strong swordsman. The Dark King still is Rayleigh when it comes to swordsmanship from that era, past era. I also love how Shiki puts his sword as a feat, which is pretty badass. Really shows how Poe's Impel Down. Shiki is kind of nerfed because he lost his feet, but he has a flying Delphin, so it could be looked at as a very slight nerf. Kind of like how Shanks is nerfed. Yeah, he used 2 hands on a sword, but he's still proficient with 1 hand. So yeah, the nerfs are there, but their Haki and Delphin buffs can definitely bring them up to another level still. I also love how Garp is complimenting Shiki for being very thorough. So pretty much saying that Shiki's not going to make a move right now. He's probably going to take his time to Sengoku. We see a young whip slap in Makino, which is I found super cool to see in this Chapter 0. Because I do think they're going to be pivotal characters at the end of One Piece when it comes to tying everything together at the end. When it comes to the baby Makino has, and Shanks is maybe the father, and then Luffy giving the straw hat to it. That's my theory for a decade now. We see baby Ace, speaking of babies, we see baby Kuina, dissed by her own father for being a girl. We know that Zoro's dream tying into Chapter 0. We see Yasop, of course, who sees travelers. Yasop, of course, kind of reminds me of Usopp here, when Usopp's always looking out to sea. So I think the tying into the Straw Hat Pirates was cool in Chapter 0. I also love how Shanks heard of Yasop's reputation. Unlike Luffy and Usopp, where they kind of just randomly ran into each other and Usopp has no reputation, Usopp kind of bigs up his own reputation. Yasop's reputation was actually from others, which I found a good contrast between father and son. Then we also see the Marigold being built. That's pretty hyped too as well. You know, the Marigold is a big deal pre-time skip. Chapter 0, I told you, has some pre-time skip themes. Bellemere, Of course, the mother of Nami thinks she wants smoke with Shiki, and of course Nami and Strong World had some beef with Shiki. I think she actually kidnaps her. And of course, the fact that he disses the East Blue and the East Blue talks shit back, it makes sense. I also love how Red Leg Zeph, who of course cut off his legs, just like Shiki, talks about the gold line flying through the air, hyping up Shiki's Delphoot ability, which I think is underrated. I think people don't like to talk about it, but Shiki's Delphoot in his prime probably was insane compared to the other Yonko level characters and Pirate King level characters, yo. Because you have to understand, Garp, Roger, no Delphoot. Whitebeard and Sengoku have insanely overpowered Delphoots, Big Mom and Kaido as well, but I think Shiki is like hacks where Oda didn't want him to have it. Obviously, we know Red Leg Zeph cut off his leg for Sanji, so it's a connection to Strong Pirates like I mentioned. We see Dr. Korea and Hiryuk in Jump Kingdom, a connection to Chopper. We see Walpole being spoiled. This has been said. Walpole's being spoiled. And I think the fact that Walpole is now a big character, seeing Imu and the Gorosei and their demonic powers. Yeah, this is very interesting how it's going to tie into the end of One Piece. Robin with her 79 million berry bounty hiding as well. We know that she is literally the reason why Luffy's going to get to Laugh Tale. And of course, learn the truth of Joy Boy's tale. We also see Gaimon stuck in the treasure chest. We know Gaimon is a fan favorite character. Frankie, Tom, the Sea Express weapons that Frankie's putting on it. Yeah, cool and all, because of course Sunny and Elbaf, and of course the Atom Tree, and how we see that what Frankie can do. We got Laboon screaming, and Crocker said there's no point because I can't find the Lombard Pirates. This is after joining Roger, and we see Brook as right next to it, the 42 degrees. I love how Brook is connected to Roger, and Brook has some connections to Gonko, which is insane in Elbaf. So Brook is more hype than people like to think. And then of course we see Hachi and Shaki and Sabaody, which we all know the story of Hachi being saved by Rayleigh, or Hachi actually saving Rayleigh, and then of course having that connection there. We also see Rayleigh saying, "So there you are, Shiki." Don't forget, Rox and Roger's crew used to fight during the era, and the Edward battle as well. It's pretty huge. So I love Rayleigh saying this. We also see Shiki asking Whitebeard how this sea is without Roger. Shiki's obsession with Roger is insane, but I think it's his also a fascination between Rox and Roger, and of course what happened on God Valley. I think that's the reason why he's so fascinated. I think he had more ideals in conquering the world more so than Whitebeard. Whitebeard is more laid back. Remember when Roger pulled up to Shaki's bar on God Valley and Whitebeard just left, like, and Rogers were looking for Whitebeard? Yeah, Whitebeard is more laid back compared to Shiki. So that's what we see a little different one from this Ring of Rocks than the Whitebeard Ring of Rocks. But Whitebeard definitely rode out at the end. Not as much as people wanted to, but he still rode out. I like how Shiki also mentions the wall that blocked our way, pretty much saying that Roger was in front of Shiki and Whitebeard. The same way Rocks was kind of in front of them too as their captain. And I love how Shiki's never nice to Whitebeard, but he's nice here and Whitebeard can catch it. And Shiki's saying it's Whitebeard's era, and Whitebeard's like, "I'll throw you overboard if you keep yapping nonsense, yo." Like, don't forget they're the Wings of the Rocks pirates. They argue back in the days, and we've seen that during their prime. So I love this interaction after Roger's execution, the years after Roger's execution. I thought it was super cool. I also like how Shiki tells Whitebeard he's going quiet for a while until it's time to show this weak age true terror. A pirate inspires as Whitebeard realizes Shiki's scheming again. Obviously, Strong World. What if he's the man marked by flames? It would be crazy to see Whitebeard dead, Kaido and Big Mom gone, and then Shiki comes back out of nowhere, even though Choku fell. So the old era is gone, and Shiki, the only one left, would be insane. And the last thing I want to talk about when it comes to Chapter 0, I think there's so many cool things to talk about, but the last page hypes up Strong World movie, but easily could be turned into canon if Oda wants to, with Heaven Realm, Elbaf, Mad Monk Rouge still not back in the story, and Nell on the moon, and Lodestar, the last island before Laptail, all being plot points that Shiki could return. The Man Marked by Flames is the biggest one, but people already thought that Gabon was Shiki, and that kind of got destroyed. So I don't know, if Oda wants to make him canon, I wouldn't mind, but I get if Oda wants to say he was just a movie character that has hype in the main story. Both reasons are valid to me, and I enjoyed Shiki Chapter 0. Honestly, it was probably one of my favorite chapters in the One Piece story.